Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a case that, well, for a long time it's felt like it might forever remain shrouded in mystery. A devastating question mark hanging over a family, and really entire community for nearly 2 decades.
Yeah.
The disappearance of Natalee Holloway.
And this isn't just, looking back at a cold case. This deep dive is unique because we're exploring a truly intricate and, frankly, pretty astonishing path to a confession they'd sought for so long.
Right.
It was driven by this almost unbelievable twist involving a completely separate extortion case. It turned what seemed like a total dead end into the ultimate breakthrough. It's really a profound story of relentless pursuit, incredible legal ingenuity, and just the sheer unyielding power of a mother's determination.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to unpack the intricate timeline of events. It all began on what should have been just an innocent graduation trip.
Right.
We'll trace the persistent, cross-continental search for answers, the shocking details of the final confession that finally brought the truth to light, and importantly, what this hard-won resolution ultimately means for a family that quite literally never, ever gave up hope or the fight.
Yeah.
You'll hear about Natalee, the vibrant young woman whose life was tragically cut short, the individual responsible for her passing, and the extraordinary perseverance that, really against staggering odds, finally delivered a measure of peace after 18 agonizing years. It's quite a testament to how far someone will go for truth.
Yeah.
To really grasp the magnitude of this case, we kind of need to transport ourselves back to May of 2005. Picture Natalee Holloway. She's 18 years old, from Mountain Brook, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
She was right on the cusp of adulthood, brimming with all that excitement that comes with high school graduation. Looking forward to college, she had these dreams of becoming a doctor. And she was enjoying what should have been a joyous, carefree high school graduation trip to the beautiful, seemingly idyllic island of Aruba. Just a typical young person, celebrating a significant milestone, feeling on top of the world, surrounded by friends, endless possibilities ahead.
Yeah, just having fun.
Exactly. And then, in a blink, she simply vanished.
It was indeed a critical night, specifically the early hours of May 30th, 2005. Natalee was last seen leaving Carlos and Charlie's, which was, a popular local bar there. She left with 3 young men, brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpoe, and Jorn Vandersloot. Vandersloot. He was a Dutch citizen, a local student who'd actually grown up on the island and was, well, somewhat known in the tourist circles. What started as just a missing person report, a teenager doesn't show up for her flight home, very, very quickly escalated. It became an international sensation.
Instantly, almost.
Yeah, the news cycles were immediately dominated by live reports from Aruba. Natalee's smiling face became this constant, haunting image as this desperate global search for answers just intensified. The sheer speed with which her disappearance gripped the world, it was pretty unprecedented for a missing person case, from what seemed like such a peaceful vacation spot.
And the response from Natalee's mother, Beth Holloway, it was immediate, deeply personal, driven by this, primal, visceral need to find her daughter.
Oh, absolutely.
She flew to Aruba almost right away.
Yeah.
And she essentially took on the role of an investigator herself. I mean, can you imagine the sheer willpower, the raw courage required to do that?
No, I really can't.
To arrive in a foreign country, completely consumed by fear and desperation, and immediately start piecing together your daughter's last known movements, talking to witnesses, tracking down leads, and incredibly, managing to find Jorn Vandersloot and confronting him directly about what happened that night. It's a level of maternal instinct and determination that's truly awe-inspiring. Especially when you think she was an American civilian in a foreign legal system. She was operating on pure instinct and love.
And despite Beth's incredible, almost superhuman efforts, the initial attempts by the Aruban authorities to solve the case, well, they were frustrating, and for years, ultimately unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Jorn Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers, they were arrested multiple times in connection with Natalee's disappearance, but each time they were released. No formal charges.
Why? What was the reason given?
The Aruban authorities cited insufficient evidence. The legal system there apparently requires a high burden of proof for an arrest to actually transition into formal charges. And without a body, without definitive forensic evidence, their hands, they claimed, were tied.
Which just left this gaping void for her family, this profound uncertainty that just lingered for nearly 2 decades.
Exactly. Natalee's body was never found. Despite extensive land searches, sea searches, countless volunteer efforts, this global outpouring of support, nothing.
And if you think about that, just put yourself in that position. Imagine the agonizing uncertainty for a parent. Knowing their child is gone, but having no body, no definitive answers, and the prime suspect just walking free.
Walking free, repeatedly denying involvement, sometimes even, taunting the family through media appearances. It's horrific.
That state of not knowing, as Beth Holloway herself would later describe it, it's often far more torturous than knowing even a painful truth. It just transforms grief into this endless unanswered question. Hashtag tag tag 2. Years of lies, taunts, and another tragedy.
Yeah, it really does.
So as you can imagine, the years following Natalee's disappearance were incredibly difficult, just marked by this brutal emotional toll. Time marched on, but it brought no definitive answers, no closure for the family.
No.
The global interest remained sure, but the hope of finding Natalee alive, well, it dwindled. She was legally declared deceased in 2012, which, while a necessary step for the family maybe to manage her estate and things like that, it certainly didn't stop the case from haunting the public, and most profoundly, her mother, Beth Holloway. This was not a story that just faded from memory. It continued to loom large, didn't it? Like a symbol of unresolved injustice.
It absolutely did. And what's fascinating here, and deeply chilling, is the subsequent disturbing turn of events involving Joran van der Sloot.
Right. His story didn't end there.
Not at all. 5 years after Natalee's disappearance, in May 2010, and this is eerie on the very anniversary of Natalee Holloway's last known sighting, he committed a truly heinous act in Lima, Peru.
Oh, my.
He brutally took the life of another young woman, Stephanie Flores. She was a 21-year-old business student.
No.
Yeah. And the details that emerged from the Peruvian investigation were just unsettlingly similar to the accusations surrounding Natalee's case. Stephanie Flores had also reportedly refused his sexual advances.
Unbelievable. The same pattern.
The exact same pattern. He began serving a 28-year prison sentence in Peru for this crime. So this established this deeply disturbing pattern of behavior, right? Showcasing not only a violent nature, but also this chilling disregard for human life and a capacity for repeated similar acts of brutality, especially against young women who resisted him.
And it was during his time in Peruvian custody, after taking Stephanie Flores' life, that van der Sloot engaged in what you can only describe as just audacious, incredibly cruel, and ultimately a financially driven attempt to profit from Beth Holloway's unimaginable pain.
It's just sickening.
In 2010, he brazenly reached out, offering to reveal the location of Natalee's remains.
For money.
For money, in exchange for $250,000, $250,000. It's hard to fathom such an act of depravity, right? To leverage a grieving mother's desperate hope like that.
It really is.
But for Beth Holloway, even this desperate, twisted offer, this dark glimmer, it still became a faint beacon of hope for answers. A chance, maybe, to finally bring her daughter home. She was willing to risk everything for that truth.
And what happened next was actually a crucial turning point, a meticulously planned operation. The FBI got involved.
Oh, okay.
They launched a carefully orchestrated sting, working directly with Beth Holloway. So under their guidance, Beth paid van der Sloot $25,000 as a down payment.
$25,000.
He took the money, but the information he provided was utterly false. Prosecutors later described it as just worthless.
Worthless. So he lied again.
He lied again. He claimed Natalee's body had been disposed of in a construction site, even drew a map apparently, but the location turned out to be non-existent, or at least there were no remains there.
Wow.
So this wasn't just cruel deception, it was a criminal act. He then promptly fled back to Peru after collecting the money, which essentially confirmed the wire fraud and extortion charges that would later follow him for years.
So let's be clear for everyone listening. Wire fraud is using electronic communications like emails or wire transfers to pull off a deceptive scheme. Right.
Exactly. And extortion is basically compelling someone to do something, usually pay money, through threats or coercion. In this case, he was using the leverage of Natalee's unsolved disappearance to fraudulently get money from Beth.
Just think about the emotional toll of that. A cruel deception like that. It didn't just add insult to injury, it amplified the grief with a fresh betrayal, making that struggle for answers even more unbearable.
It was a calculated act to exploit raw emotion, and it really speaks volumes about the individual responsible. It certainly reinforced Beth's deep-seated belief that he knew exactly what happened to her daughter.
So years passed after that cruel, failed extortion attempt. That initial hope from the sting operation, it must have dwindled, replaced by the daunting reality of dealing with international legal systems.
Yeah, those things take time. A lot of time.
But what often feels like an insurmountable barrier in these cases, just the sheer complexity of international law, actually became the eventual pathway to justice here.
Yeah.
Bringing Joran Vandersloot to the U.S. to face those wire fraud and extortion charges required incredibly complex legal and diplomatic efforts between multiple
Hmm.
nations.
Peru, the U.S., the Netherlands, Aruba.
But the persistence, against incredible odds, it finally paid off.
Hmm.
After years of negotiation, Peru granted something called a temporary surrender in June of 2023.
This temporary surrender, it's a fascinating legal mechanism, actually. It's a specific agreement where a country, Peru, in this case temporarily, releases a prisoner to another jurisdiction, so the U.S., for prosecution on different charges.
But with the understanding they go back.
Exactly. With the explicit understanding that they will be returned to serve out their existing sentence. So it's not a full extradition in the traditional sense. It's more like a precise legal dance to ensure he faced justice in the U.S. while still serving his substantial Peruvian sentence.
That's clever.
It is. And what's truly fascinating here, and it speaks volumes about the tenacity of the U.S. Attorney's Office, particularly the foresight of former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, is their strategic belief that the extortion prosecution could serve as a vehicle. That was the word used.
Vehicle.
Yeah, a brilliant legal maneuver to finally get a confession regarding Natalee. This wasn't just about the financial crimes anymore. It was a means to an end, a path to the truth that had eluded everyone for so long.
Wow. So they saw the bigger picture.
They really did. It was an extraordinary collaboration involving the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and the governments of Peru, the Netherlands, and Aruba, all aligning their efforts for a common, albeit indirect, goal. They recognized that while a murder charge was off the table in Aruba due to the statute of limitations, the extortion charge offered this unique leverage point in the U.S.
And then came that dramatic scene. Birmingham, Alabama, October 18th, 2023. Joran Vandersloot. After 18 years of denials, speculation, evasions, he appeared in federal court, shackled, wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking significantly different from that arrogant young man last seen in Aruba.
Time had passed, prison time.
For so many people who had followed this case, who had watched Beth Holloway's tireless fight for nearly 2 decades, this was a day they truly thought would never come. The atmosphere in that courtroom,
Yeah.
it must have been electric. A palpable mix of anticipation, relief, and just deep-seated emotion.
You have to imagine.
It was a powerful moment, symbolizing years of waiting and hoping for accountability, finally manifesting in a tangible way on American soil.
And that takes us to the crucial legal maneuver, the thing that truly unlocked the answers everyone sought. Vandersloot's plea agreement for the financial crimes explicitly hinged on him providing, and this is the exact wording, full, complete, accurate, and truthful information regarding Natalee Holloway's disappearance.
It wasn't a side note. It was
Yeah.
the core condition.
Exactly. It was the long-awaited, meticulously engineered opportunity for the truth to finally emerge, guaranteed by the threat of a much harsher sentence for the financial crimes if he lied.
Which raises a really interesting point. How often do you see a criminal case, initially focused on one type of crime, become the very tool that unlocks answers to another, much larger and previously insoluble mystery?
It's pretty rare. It's a remarkable example of how strategic legal thinking can yield unexpected, profound results, almost serving as a proxy for justice when direct prosecution for the more severe crime is barred by legal limitations, like the statute of limitations here. It was kind of a masterstroke in a complex international puzzle.
Okay, so the stage was meticulously set for the courtroom revelation. October 18th, 2023. Joran Vandersloot pleaded guilty to wire fraud and extortion. Now, that in itself was a significant development, right? Legally confirming his despicable attempt to profit from Beth Holloway's anguish.
Absolutely, a conviction on federal charges.
But it was what came next. What he revealed as part of that plea agreement that was truly groundbreaking. It sent shockwaves through the courtroom and really around the world. The air must have been thick with anticipation.
The chilling account of Natalee Holloway's demise, as described by Joran Vandersloot himself, it was horrific in its detail. He admitted to beating her until she passed away on an Aruban beach.
Why? What reason did he give?
He said it was after she had refused his sexual advances. Specifically, he claimed she kneed him in the groin, which, he stated, provoked his violent, explosive reaction.
Oh my God.
He then described dragging or half pulling and half walking her body into the ocean, going to about my knees, he said, and pushing her off into the sea. into the darkness.
And how reliable is this confession after all the lies?
Well, what's critical for this confession's validity is that it was subsequently verified by a comprehensive and conclusive polygraph
A
test.
polygraph. Okay.
Now, while polygraphs have their critics, and they aren't always admissible as primary evidence in U.S. courts, in the context of a plea agreement like this, and for verifying a confession outside of a formal trial, they can be incredibly persuasive. For prosecutors and, crucially, for the victim's family, it provides that critical layer of independent confirmation after years and years of lies.
So it added significant weight. It distinguished this from all his previous false stories.
Exactly.
And as she listened to this horrifying confession she was watching from another room in the courthouse, Beth Holloway had this profound, almost spiritual aha moment.
Yeah, I read about that.
She immediately recognized her feisty daughter in Vandersloot's description of Natalee fighting back fiercely. Beth later stated, and I think this just captures so much of Natalee's spirit, she fought like hell. I think she fought like hell with her killer. She stood her ground. For Beth, hearing that detail, even amidst the horror, it provided this vivid, albeit incredibly painful image of Natalee's final moments, confirming her strengths, her resolve, reinforcing the image of the vibrant young woman she was. It brought a certain clarity, to what had just been a complete void of information for so long.
What's particularly disturbing, though, perhaps even more chilling than the act itself, are the details Vandersloot provided about his behavior immediately after causing Natalee's passing.
What did he say he did?
As he described it with this just chilling lack of emotion, he walked home, he checked the soccer score.
Check the soccer score?
Yeah. He got on a porn site, he took a shower, and then he went to school later that morning as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred.
Just treat.
Complete routine, this cold routine aftermath, it speaks volumes about his character. The apparent complete absence of immediate remorse or any significant emotional distress following such a profound act. It paints a picture of a deeply disturbed individual capable of unimaginable violence followed by immediate dispassionate normalcy. It's a stark contrast to typical human reactions to trauma or guilt.
It just revealed this chilling depravity, a complete absence of a moral compass.
Totally.
And in a moment of incredible power and defiance, Beth Holloway delivered a victim impact statement directly to Vandersloot in court.
I saw clips of this. Powerful doesn't even begin to cover it.
She looked him right in the eye, her voice filled with a lifetime of pain and righteous anger, and told him unequivocally, "You are a killer. I want you to remember that every time that jail door slams." She powerfully articulated how he had not only taken Natalee's life, but had terminated her potential when he bludgeoned her, robbing Natalee of her dreams, becoming a doctor, getting married, having children. It was just this raw, unfiltered expression of years of unimaginable pain, a direct confrontation that so many had waited 18 years to witness. Her words resonated far beyond that courtroom, really speaking for countless victims and their families.
Vandersloot, for his part, he made a brief statement in court. He offered an apology to the Holloway family and his own, stating, "I hope my statement provides some sense of closure. I am no longer the person I was back then." He even claimed to have given his heart to Jesus Christ.
Did anyone believe him? Did it seem genuine?
Well, those present, including Beth, perceived his demeanor as lacking true contrition. There was no real remorse in his tone, his body language, his expression. It felt, to many, like a performance, like a strategic move to fulfill the requirements of his plea agreement, rather than a genuine outpouring of regret.
Which brings up that question again, right? How does one truly process such horrific details, especially after 18 years of agonizing uncertainty? And critically, what does true remorse even look like?
Yeah.
Was it genuinely present here, or was it just a calculated facade designed to complete the legal maneuver? The answers, they likely depend on who you ask. But for Natalee's family, the absence of true contrition was palpable.
Yeah, definitely palpable.
So with the confession finally out in the open, verified, legally documented, the sentencing followed swiftly. Geron Vandersloot received the maximum sentence of 20 years for the extortion and wire fraud charges.
20 years, maximum sentence allowed for the specific federal crime.
Right, and crucially, this sentence will run concurrently with his existing Peruvian sentence for the murder of Stephanie Flores.
Concurrent, that's the key word.
Explain that for listeners. What does concurrent mean in this context?
It means the sentences run at the same time. So his 20-year U.S. sentence started ticking while he was still serving his Peruvian sentence. And that Peruvian sentence, just to remind everyone, doesn't expire until 2045.
2045.
So unless there are highly unlikely and unexpected early releases from Peru, which seems improbable given the severity of that crime, Vandersloot will almost certainly remain imprisoned for a very, very long time, essentially likely for the rest of his natural life.
Okay. And he was also ordered to pay restitution.
Yes, $25,000 in restitution to the Holloway family, recouping the exact money he fraudulently obtained during that FBI sting operation back in 2010. It's a form of financial justice, however small it might seem in the grand scheme of things.
It's important, though, to address the legal limitations surrounding this case, something Beth Holloway had to confront for years.
Right. Despite the confession, Vandersloot cannot be prosecuted for Natalee's murder in Aruba.
Why not? He confessed.
Because the statute of limitations for murder there has expired. It's typically 12 years in Aruba. So while the truth is out, a murder conviction in Aruba is legally impossible at this point.
That must be frustrating on some level.
Oh, I'm sure. However, and this is the critical distinction, I think, for the family, the true victory was not a conventional murder conviction, which was legally unattainable anyway. The true victory was the truth itself.
The answers.
The answers. The verified confession provided the answers they had sought for so long, answers that transcended the courtroom and legal definitions. It transformed the focus from this endless, legally frustrated pursuit to a profound personal resolution.
Beth Holloway's profound and often quoted sentiment really captures the essence of this outcome, doesn't it? She declared, with just unwavering conviction, Natalee's case is solved. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Powerful words.
She went on to state that Vandersloot is no longer the suspect. He is the killer. Now, this isn't just a shift in legal terminology. It's a deeply personal psychological transformation for her.
It absolutely is.
It means she no longer lives with that torturous question of who or what happened, but with the certainty, however painful, of a verified truth. And that level of certainty for a grieving parent, well, it's priceless.
Beth Holloway has introduced this powerful, almost revolutionary concept in describing this outcome. She calls it better than closure.
Better than closure. What does she mean by that?
For her, closure implied a finality, maybe a moving on, perhaps even forgetting, which she felt was impossible and, frankly, undesirable. Instead, this verified truth means the never-ending nightmare is finally over.
The nightmare of not knowing.
Exactly. She can now sleep easy, as she put it, because the answers she desperately sought for 18 years have been verified. It puts all the swirling theories, the endless rabbit holes, the agonizing unknowns, the constant media speculation. It puts it all to rest. It allows her to move past the torturous uncertainty that plagued her daily existence for so long. It's really a testament to the power of truth, even when it's painful, in bringing a unique and profound form of peace. A peace that transcends conventional notions of justice or healing. It's about the liberation that comes with knowing.
And this hard-won resolution also allows Beth Holloway and her family to remember Natalee not just as a victim, but to shift their focus now, right?
Yes.
They can now fully embrace her incredible life, her vibrant personality, her dreams of becoming a doctor, and just the vibrant memory of her living on through her brother, Matt, and his children. It's about remembering the potential, the joy, the love she brought into the world, rather than being solely consumed by the unanswered questions of her disappearance. It's about reclaiming her legacy.
And if we connect this to the broader picture, the hard-won resolution of this case, it really offers a beacon of hope for other families who are still searching for answers, for their loved ones in cold cases.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It also reinforces the critical importance of personal safety awareness for young people traveling, highlighting the potential vulnerabilities even in seemingly safe environments. Ultimately, this case demonstrates that relentless dedication, international collaboration, and an unyielding pursuit of truth, sometimes through unconventional legal strategies, can, against all odds, bring even the most elusive answers to light. It offers a unique form of resolution that transcends conventional legal outcomes. It shows that sometimes you have to create your own path to justice.
We've walked through a case that stretched across oceans and decades. It really shows the incredible human will to uncover truth, no matter how painful, no matter how long it takes. But it raises that question, what does true justice mean when legal systems, as we saw in Aruba, have limitations like the statute of limitations?
It's a tough question, but I think for Beth Holloway, it was the raw, verified truth that provided that sense of liberation, perhaps more than any legal conviction could have under the circumstances. So maybe you have to consider how the pursuit of knowledge, even really painful knowledge, can be the ultimate form of resolution for some.
Yeah, it shifts the focus from what couldn't be done legally to what could be achieved through sheer unyielding perseverance.
Exactly.
So, as you reflect on Natalie's story, maybe ask yourself, in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, what would you sacrifice for a final answer, for the definitive end of a personal nightmare?
This case reminds us that while some wounds, they may never fully heal, the power of perseverance can, in time, transform victimhood into a profound sense of victory, even without a conventional legal conclusion. It's about finding peace in the truth.